Hello, welcome to another video, and I'm very pleased to say that today's video is sponsored by me. Have you enjoyed my map videos and you want to get a copy of your very own map? Well, now you can. I've started a brand new website called oddartworks.com. Here you can download all my prompts for free, purchase a digital version of each of the maps, or buy a limited edition A3 print on high quality paper which I'll ship anywhere around the world. Each high quality A3 print is signed and numbered, and once all 250 are gone, they're gone for good. I'm only doing limited editions of the monthly maps. If you would like to purchase one or a digital copy, this really is a great way to support the channel and allows me to continue to make videos. So please visit oddartworks.com and get your very own map today. Alright, on with the video. And so we've got the Dungeon a Day video for June, this time Goblin themed. So here's my list of prompts, which you can now get from my website for free. So I've got my calendar laid out and ready. So yeah, let's get going. So day 1, 12 stolen merchant crates. So I really wanted to play up the mischief of this. I thought this was quite a nice one to start, didn't know where it was going, so yeah, lots of goblins carrying crates into a cave, so it could go anywhere from here. Also, weirdly, this calendar kind of starts at the end of a row, which they often do, so it was interesting incorporating that kind of factor into this. Scale-wise, I think I've made it slightly bigger, as in the goblins are closer, because I really wanted to focus on these mischievous little scamps as they go about their escapades throughout this map. I really had no idea where it was going to go at this point, as I never do at the start, but it's always good fun. So yeah, giving myself some options, having the cave lead down into what will ultimately be a day a few, well, maybe even a week away, so I didn't have to worry about it. But yeah, I thought it was quite a nice start to the month. Just a bunch of goblins being goblins, stealing stuff. So yeah, all good fun. Alright, next one. Blood-smeared altar. Okay, so this was quite cool because this was at the other end of the map now on a different row, so I kind of thought, let's have kind of a war altar at the edge of a cliff. I find I need a lot of negative space around the edges, so this was quite a nice kind of way to do that. So I've got a bunch of skulls at the bottom with blood flowing off. I really want to kind of make sure this statue looked quite menacing, even though it is quite silly and quite funny because it's of a goblin with a big sword. So yeah, trying to find that balance between humour and kind of grotesquerie, I suppose, is always what I'm trying to do. Getting those little details on the ground, it really helps sell it, and then, you know, adding the kind of dark in there. I think this was like a few days before my lovely big fat pen ran out, so yeah, I've got a new pen now and it stinks just as nicely as the other one does. Okay, next one, exploding barrel. Okay, so I interpreted this as in I wanted the barrel to be exploding, so I kind of thought, let's have a barrel launcher and a bunch of goblins, probably not aiming at anything, just for the sheer entertainment of blowing stuff up. So I came up with this idea for a weird kind of catapult with a big spoon on it, and the other goblins just kind of stood around watching the chaos ensue. So yeah, you know, kind of trying to always tie this into the theme. Goblins are a bit kind of crazy, they are quite destructive. I like to think they're not really aware of how destructive they are. Kind of like people really, I suppose. Anyway. Next one, Goblin dice game. Now, as I was filming this, my camera slipped and I didn't realise until after I'd filmed it. So what you're actually seeing, or you would be seeing, is two goblins who are rolling dice and they're determining what weapon they're going to hit each other with. So one's got an axe, the other's got a knife. And that was the thinking behind it. It's just silly, really. I like a bit of silliness, so that's what we were going with there. And trees, you know, kind of filling it up with trees. I wanted the goblins to live in quite a tranquil kind of woodland to begin with. So I was working on this idea of, you know, quite a nice place really. It's just full of goblins, you know, so real estate's probably really cheap because no one wants to live with goblins. Alright, next one, Trickster Goblin. Okay, so I kind of like the idea of this goblin causing chaos wherever he goes. So maybe he's given those goblins the dice. He's maybe equipped the other goblins with the exploding barrels, and he's hiding behind a fake tree because he's a prankster. And he's set up like a man trap with like a chunk of some kind of roasted animal on there, trying to ensnare somebody so he can play tricks on them. That was sort of the thinking with this, and I kind of thought, okay, well, he might be like a central character to all this. So let's see what happens. So 47, Goblin Cookoff. So I kind of like the idea that maybe the Trickster Goblin has added something very flammable to the pot that the goblins are cooking, and it's caused this huge kind of fire to erupt everywhere. So we've got this kind of burning section of the forest, and one goblin is frantically rushing around trying to find more ingredients, and he's spotted the chunk of meat in the man trap, so he's going to fall for the Trickster Goblin's trick. I also thought this would be a great way for when I colour it to add a different kind of hue to an area. Whenever I add the effects, it's always those areas that are quite interesting, so good fun to do that always. And yeah, so 2 goblins having a cook-off that's gone horribly wrong. Alright, next one. Number 1, Sputtering Torchlight. Okay, so I interpreted this as kind of the prankster goblin's whatever liquid or thing he's put in the pot has conjured this big fire demon, and there is a torchlight in there, so I have got that in there. And this kind of fire demon or elemental is about to cause chaos, and it's, as always, it's really nice to get a really kind of innocuous prompt and interpret it based on the image that's come before. Alright, a wounded bugbear. Okay, so maybe this bugbear has been thinking about how he's going to fight this thing, and I didn't want to put him in the cave, so I've sort of pushed that to a problem for later on and just had the bugbear kind of lying there. And he's taken an arrow to the knee, you know, which I'm sure you all know that kind of meme and that joke, but if you know, you know. Yeah, so he was quite fun to draw. He's kind of like a Wookiee with a big mustache, which is how I envision bugbears to be, kind of lanky like that. But yeah, you know, he's not really sure how to deal with this fire monster thing because he's only got a sword and he's got an arrow in the knee, so we'll have to work out where that comes from later. Oh, we finished a row, so here we are. That's where we're at so far. So far so good. Got a nice narrative going. What we got? 76 by the looks of it. A locked gate. Okay, so I knew I was going to go into a cave system at some point, so I kind of thought, well, this is a good opportunity to have an entrance. So I literally just did a locked door into the cliff face. I kind of enjoyed the little narrative that was going on outside and felt, actually, that's quite self-contained, so I don't really need to worry too much. So whatever goes on in the cave will be interesting, certainly for the next row down, I think. So that was sort of what I was doing. So this whole thing was kind of a nice way to set things up for later, even though I didn't know what was coming later, which is always fun with these things. Alright, next one. Secret crawl space. So I probably should have given myself more rock face, but I decided I'd have this kind of hidden kind of space with this rock with like a hatch on it, with an archer in it, and he's firing these arrows off, and maybe he's such a good shot that he thinks he could hit that fire elemental way at the other end of that top row. But he's missed and he's hit the bugbear, so I kind of enjoyed that little tie-in there. Next one, Goblin Dance Circle. Okay. Yeah, not really much to do with anything. I just think goblins just like to have a dance now and again, so just a bunch of goblins having a jolly time in amongst all these chopped down trees. Just partying, really, just having a great time. Maybe they're guests of the goblins doing the cook-off and they're anticipating a great meal, not really knowing what's gone wrong with the cook-off. So yeah, quite a fun one, that. Alright, Goblin Graffiti. Okay, so I always like the idea that goblins kind of don't really build anything, they just inhabit spaces that already exist. So I like the idea that maybe there's a bit of a ruin in this place, and we've got a goblin who's just kind of making it a bit more goblin-y. So he's just drawing a big kind of goblin dumb face on the bit of exposed wall that's left. So yeah, like quite a literal interpretation, but I think it's quite fun. And because he's behind the wall, he can't see the chaos that's going on kind of above him type thing. Alright, next one, poisoned meat chunks. Alright, this is what I love about these maps, because the poisoned meat chunks by themselves, I wasn't quite sure how I could do it, but I kind of like the idea that maybe these meat chunks are exploding out of the cook-off pot above and sort of raining down on the land kind of a bit further away, and whatever's gone in to create the fire demon has poisoned the meat a little bit. So yeah, it was quite fun. Shiny trinket horde. So yeah, I like the idea of buried treasure, so I like this idea of these goblins kind of having this kind of horde. They found what they think is a secluded space, they're going to bury the treasure, but they're absolutely awestruck at this fire monster and the bugbear, so they're probably now thinking maybe we should put this treasure someplace else. So yeah, quite a nice quiet little scene, a little story in itself there, which is always good fun. Alright, still no better at rolling on camera. Violet fungus patch. Okay, so I kind of wanted to go inside the cave at this point, and I liked the idea of having maybe violet fungus is sentient fungus, and these mushroom people are kind of alive and they're trying to rebel against the goblins perhaps, and yeah, that's sort of my thinking with that. They've armed themselves with spears and they're going to go nuts at the goblins when they've got more numbers, I think. So you know, this is going to be a problem for the goblins later on, but they don't know it yet. You know, just like I don't know what's coming next to the map. So there we go, that's where we are so far. All quite nice. I think that's where I decided that would all be outside, apart from the bits in the caves obviously. But yeah, alright, next one. Talking skull. Any excuse to draw a skull or a skeleton for me. So yeah, I just wanted to do like perhaps a goblin has looted a spell book and it's fallen open on this page and it's conjured this demonic flaming skull that chatters away in this cave. But the goblins just ignore it because they don't really understand magic, and they're not sure how to deal with it. So kind of fun, kind of simple, not too busy, so it works well. I'm quite happy with that. Alright, next one, lurking giant centipede. Alright, so I am pretty good with most insects until they get to like ridiculous sizes, except centipedes. I hate centipedes. They terrify me. I don't like them. I think when I was a kid, one tried to get in my ear when I was camping once, and I've never liked them since. So this would absolutely terrify me, particularly one at this scale. So it's kind of good to draw things that you don't particularly like, because you know what it is you don't like, and for me it's those pincers and all those legs. So this was really good fun to draw, so very happy to include a giant terrifying centipede. Alright, next one, we've got cave fungus farm. Okay, so I wanted to make this different from kind of the sentient fungus. So I like the idea there's this farmer who's just spotted the centipede and he's like, you're not taking my mushrooms, mate. And he's just got this little patch of mushrooms within the cave. And it's his responsibility to grow mushrooms for everybody. And he takes it very seriously, so no big centipede or monster is going to take it from him. So yeah, simple, clear, I like it. Right, next one, captured adventurer. I kind of thought about extending the mushrooms, and I thought, well, I don't have to have the adventurer captured by the goblins. Perhaps the fungus is quite parasitic and it's taken over the adventurer, so kind of grown up him and grown out of him a little bit, and he's kind of stuck there as kind of this horrible living kind of statue almost. So he's been captured by the mushrooms. And I like to think the goblins are fairly unaware of this. Maybe they're immune to the mushroom kind of paralyzation or whatever it is the mushrooms do, but normal adventurers not so much. So yeah. Alright, next one. Smelly sock altar. Okay. So again, I kind of just wanted to carry the mushrooms along for a bit, to be fair, and I kind of thought, well, maybe this is where the mushrooms have come from. Maybe there's something weird and magical about the stinky, smelly sock altar that's kind of caused them to grow in abundance here. So sort of a big statue of a cracked kind of goblin holding a stinky sock and holding his nose to demonstrate that it smells real bad. I don't know whether goblins particularly like stinky socks. It just seemed like an interesting kind of thing to write down as a prompt. So yeah, quite kind of a nice little bit to add there. And yeah. Alright, next one. Goblin mutant. I was really pleased this one came out because it gave me an opportunity to do a big monstrous goblin. So I like the idea that like he's got one massive fighting arm, like a crab has a big fighting claw, and he's sort of like misshapen and quite angry and all the rest of it. I wanted him to be outside, so I kind of made sure the mushroom cave kind of curved down a little bit, because I wanted to do the goblin quite big and I wasn't quite sure how to put him in a cave. So yeah, he was great fun to draw, quite veiny and horrible and all the rest of it. So yeah, always nice to have a goblin mutant around for good measure. But good, yeah, just making sure he's grounded a little bit there. Alright, next one, enchanted dagger. Okay, so because this is in the violet mushroom cave, I kind of thought, well, maybe this is like a hidden weapon that the mushrooms could use, and it's already taken somebody out, sort of liquidated them into a pile of kind of mush and bone. So maybe that's their secret weapon that they're going to use when their rebellion begins at last. Alright, that's another row done. This is looking like a really chaotic kind of map now, which is good because goblins are very chaotic. Alright, next one. What do we get? Cursed chest. Alright. I already had a chest earlier, so I wanted to do this one a bit different, and I wanted it to be kind of hidden away. So I made the chest into a mimic. I love that they're such fun monsters and so satisfying to draw, with the big tongue and everything like that. So yeah, that's my cursed chest. It's cursed because it's going to eat whoever tries to open it, essentially, which is very on brand for goblins, I think. They probably keep it as a pet. Alright, next one, Goblin King. Alright, so he became kind of the central theme of this kind of dungeon because, he's the king of the goblins, so I wanted him to be quite big. He's on a throne, hunched over, he's got a big old sword, quite regal looking, probably takes himself very seriously, and he waits there for goblins to bring him offerings, I kind of imagine. Yeah, he's probably planning all sorts of things. He's probably the biggest and smartest goblin, which is probably why he's in charge. I can't imagine much social structure. I would imagine a lot of goblins don't even realise they have a king, to be fair, but like here he is in his lair, and that's him right there. Alright, next one. War paint jars. Okay, rather than just put a bunch of jars lying around, I like the idea that maybe these are the king's bodyguards and the war paint gives them power. So there's one goblin holding a jar and he's just kind of splattered each of their faces and they're all riled up and ready for warfare. That's their kind of, that's what makes them special, I suppose, is the war paint. And their whole job is to protect the Goblin King. Okay, next one. We got Goblin Lookout. Okay, so this is in the middle of a cave, so I was kind of thinking, how do I do a lookout? And then I remembered this is fantasy, so we can use magic. And I kind of thought, well, let's have like the king's advisor, like this wizard-like goblin who looks out with a crystal ball, So this is my interpretation of the lookout, given the context of where we are in the middle of a cave. So maybe he's scrying on the enemies of the king and who knows what he's seeing in there. But yeah, you know, that's our lookout. All right, next one. 98, Wailing Goblin Ghost. Always nice to put some ghosts in there. I decided to make them kind of like sheet-like ghosts, like I did in the first map I did, just to kind of keep it stylistically in the same universe, I suppose. But yeah, you know, I kind of didn't really think at this point where they came from, what had happened. Maybe they're just haunting the halls. Who knows? Oh, we got Bone Soup. So this was a nice way to tie the ghosts in. So I kind of thought, well, okay, let's have like a little kind of moat almost, and maybe there's acid filling this kind of little steppy stone kind of way across, and the ghosts are what remains of goblins who have maybe been a little bit too curious and jumped straight in and obviously been dissolved immediately. So now that they're just ghosts that haunt the halls of this place. Okay, Goblin War Drum. Okay, because this is the end of a row, I kind of thought, okay, well let's have a back door to this place. So I first put a door in and then a big drum, and kind of thought, okay, well maybe there's a goblin that stands there and he bangs the drum if they're going to go to war, or if there's an enemy approaching, or if there's just anyone approaching really. And that's just what he does. That's his whole kind of job, and he loves it because he gets to bang a drum all day, you know. But yeah, quite a nice one. And our very last one is Caged Giant Beastie. Oh, yeah. So I kind of thought, well, let's make this the king's kind of pet. And I like the idea of it being a dragon. And I totally forgot that I had to move the camera to draw the head. So yeah, quite good fun drawing dragons, I've got to say. I do enjoy a good dragon now and again. Maybe this isn't the smartest dragon in the world. Maybe he lives there because he enjoys the scraps. Yeah, he kind of likes being a pet. You know, life's good. He gets fed. He doesn't get mistreated. So yeah, that was what I was thinking with that one. And then it's just a case now of filling in all the dark where, you know, text will go later. And the dark kind of makes a nice kind of frame for everything, so I quite enjoy that kind of aspect. And then just filling in a few little details, colour the whole thing in. This is definitely the day before the pen ran out, and then I got a new pen. So yeah, I can see why it ran out now. I understand. And there we go, it's kind of done. So this is right after. You can see the ink is still kind of shiny. And that's the whole map ready for the next kind of stage. Now I let this dry overnight. I don't touch it for a day. I rub everything out, and then I pull all the masking tape off that I use to attach it to the board. Now somebody asked me, why do I masking tape my stuff around the board? And there's two reasons. Firstly, because I'm very messy in what I do day to day, so if it's attached to a board I can move it out of the way so it doesn't get covered in crap. And secondly, I always find when you're scanning something in, it's good to have a little border so that you know where things are. It's just makes life easier for not having to fix bent corners and things like that on anything. So that's why I do it. But you know, it's also very satisfying to pull the masking tape off. So there we go. That's the map. Next step is to scan it in. So here's the scan. Fairly clean. I didn't have to do a whole lot of cleanup, but I did do a little bit. I added a little bit of extra stuff around the mushroom on the wall and just darkened some of the shadows in places, tidied things up. There wasn't a ton I had to do, so maybe I am getting better at these things. Then my favourite stage, I had the 3 tones of grey, which really brings the whole thing to life, so you can kind of gauge things a bit better. What would need a bit more fixing maybe. There wasn't too much this time, which was good. And then my base colours, this is what I call the messy stage, because you've been quite neat up until this point, and then you just throw in base colours down and it makes everything look really cheap, which is kind of cool in a way. So I roughly know what colours things are going to be. and then the next step is to kind of tidy it up, add some kind of individual colours to characters and specific things that are there. So all the goblins got some colour, statues and things like that, the mushrooms, everything else. Anything that was going to be effects left white. So then I put my effects in, so you can see how it changes the colour of the line. I got my explosions, I got glowing kind of mushrooms and ghosts, a few glowing eyes, the glowing skull. So yeah, that's the visual effects. And then the last part is to name it. I think I added a layer just to kind of harmonise the colours a little bit, so I think it was a pink layer. But yeah, really pleased with this. So yeah, and you'll be able to buy it on the website, so link to that is in the description. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, like and subscribe and buy a map. It's the best way to support the channel. Okay folks, I will see you next week. Take it easy. Bye now.